This is Phil Yu in Steve's studio, take 13. My name is Phil Yu. I run a blog called angryasianman.com, which is I'm told is pretty popular and influential Asian American news, culture, opinion blog. Write a lot about what's happening in pop culture. I'm a huge pop culture geek at heart. You know, I love movies and television. I watch a ton of that stuff. So, you know, I go to like Comic-Con and I watch sci-fi flicks and stuff like that, Star Trek, all that stuff. So I'm a geek at heart, you know. I hail from Sunnyvale, California. That's where I grew up, in the South Bay of the San Francisco Bay Area. You know, it's like a place where, look at it now, there are a lot of Asian Americans living there now. I remember a time where it wasn't quite like that, actually, and so it has grown over time. But I love being from the Bay Area, part of Silicon Valley. You know, I live in Los Angeles now, but I never forget my Northern California roots.
For those of you who know Phil, he's not that angry of a guy. He's actually a really down-to-earth person who blogs about the issues. We talked a lot about stuff during our studio session, including the college experience.
Northwestern. Man.
Northwestern.
Man, do you remember?
Go Wildcats.
The fond memories experiences.
Well, I mean,
and if not, if you can recall any of your USC.
Oh, USC.
Days, man.
Okay, well, holy smokes. Okay. Oh yeah, I went to undergrad at Northwestern. It was an awesome experience for me because I grew up in California and then going into the Midwest. You know, that was totally a culture shock, right? You know, you grow up in a place where like there's a lot of diversity, and then you go to school where there wasn't quite as much. And I think up until that point, I hadn't really thought of myself as Asian American until I got there, and I was like, I find myself actually gravitating towards those I felt the most comfortable with, and it happened to be other Asians, right? That was a really good time for me. I can't speak to really crazy stuff that I did there, or rather to protect the identities of those I associated with. I won't divulge the kinds of things I engaged in. You know, and as for USC, that's what actually brought me to Los Angeles, and it's where I got my master's. And it's where I discovered where I did not want to go any further into academics, and that was enough school for me. So,
surprisingly, Phil and I share a similar passion for music. So we discussed one of the hip-hop spoken word albums that played an influential role in Phil's life.
I was able to get 1 or 2 tracks from it online, and I'm surprised that, you know, this album is still out to this day, man. So how does this album, you know, influence you? How does it affect who, you know, Phil Yu is?
Let me see that.
Yeah.
Woo! So this album "Broken Speak" by the spoken word group I Was Born with Two Tongues. Highly influential piece of work, actually, in my own understanding of the way art can express identity, particularly Asian American identity. I've never seen Asian Americans speak so frankly and so powerfully about themselves, about what it means to be Asian in America, and to stand up and say, you know, to shout and speak out when things are not right. You know, there's, you know, talking about the immigrant experience, talking about having yellow skin in a white man's world, all that just crazy chest beating, like, you know, yellow power stuff that, at a different time in my life, I probably would have been like, that's so silly, like, why people, I don't understand why they're so angry, but I think it came at the right time for me, and being in Chicago, and they're from Chicago, and I went to a performance that they had at my school, and it was unreal. It was like nothing I'd ever seen before, and it really struck me. And so, you know, I got their CD, I listened to this thing non-stop. You know, it was, you know, it's very moving. You know, I'm told that this thing is like totally out of print and can't find this anymore. So I'm glad to have a copy. Yes, powerful, powerful spoken word.
I don't know this, but I obtained a children's book that was very near and dear to Phil when he was a kid. It was incredibly rare to find because they don't publish it here in the US. His reaction was priceless.
So when I was a kid, I was a pretty voracious reader. I read a lot of stuff, all kinds of books. I was crazy about those book order things you used to do through your classroom. You know, you'd order books and then send away each month, and you'd get new stuff from like Scholastic. You know. But my favorite book when I was growing up was a book called I Want to Go Home by Gordon Corman. And I think he's actually a Canadian author, but one of his books made his way down here. And I remember thinking this was the first book that ever made me truly just like bust out laughing out loud, like on the bus, you know. It was hilarious, and I remember thinking like, these are the kinds of stories that I want to tell. These are the kind of stories that I want other people to tell and encourage other people to tell, because you know, if you can bring that much joy to a kid, that's a pretty special thing, I think. So, you know, forget Harry Potter. I'd rather read Gordon Corman anytime.
That's good, man, because we actually have a copy of that book.
Oh my gosh!
This is actually pretty hard to find in like any Borders, Barnes & Noble, man. Like, you talk about Canadian author.
That's right.
It is pretty tough to find.
Oh my gosh!
Phil,
this is published in Scholastic Canada, so
yeah,
it's not readily available in the United States, I guess.
Yeah, so that is your very own copy.
Yes, I love it.
Hey man,
Awesome.
Yeah, apparently it's his favorite book, so there you go. Yeah. Yeah, man.
Awesome.
Yeah, no problem.
I could tell that the Angry Asian Man was definitely impressed with what I had to offer, and he shared some of his thoughts about his personal life and what the blog had brought to him over the years.
Since starting the blog, I've done my fair share of interviews. This is definitely one of the more interesting ones I've ever done. I've never walked away with so many interesting gifts that tug at the heartstrings of my childhood. So that's pretty awesome. It's actually a pretty cool trip down memory lane for me. But you know, that makes me that much more glad that I started the vlog, I guess.
Not only that, but we actually have another special thing for you that, you know, you might not expect, but got you the first complete season of Different Strokes, man. What can you tell me about Different Strokes?
Different Strokes. This had to be my favorite TV show growing up. I watched it was on reruns like every afternoon, so I would watch this show. Looking back now, I'm like, that was a really bad show. Why did I enjoy it so much? But you know, something about just the, you know, something about Arnold and Gary Coleman, and you know, moving up to the penthouse in New York, and this is like. This is a blast from the past for me, I think. You know, I'm pretty passionate about running the blog. I love to write. I love to do it, you know, every day. You know, it's taken me to some really interesting places and allowed me to meet some awesome people. It's also led me to see some just really, like, the worst things about human beings, encountered, like, the worst kinds of opinions that are out there. But overall, it's been a really rewarding experience. You know, it's a blessing. So I really truly embrace, you know, this calling as a blogger. And you know, I'm not really all that angry guy, but somehow anger has led me to a place where I understand a little bit more about myself. So that's cool.